The Washington coast is splitting apart, and a new volcano is emerging from the ocean floor right now. Not in some distant corner of the globe, not in a textbook about things that happened millions of years ago, right now. Off the coast of Washington and Oregon, the seafloor is cracking open, magma is pushing up from below, and scientists are watching something that most people have no idea is even happening. 18 earthquakes have already struck the same location in a matter of hours. The largest one hit magnitude 4.2 and kept climbing. And here is the part that stops you cold. This is not the fault that everyone fears. This is not the Cascadia subduction zone, the one that scientists say will one day produce a magnitude 9 earthquake and a tsunami over 100 feet tall. This is something different, something older, something that is quietly building a brand new piece of the ocean floor directly beneath the surface of the Pacific. The question is, if the seafloor is splitting open and a volcano could be rising from the deep, right now, what does that mean for the most dangerous coastline in North America? Something is happening beneath the Pacific Ocean right now, and most people on land have absolutely no idea. In the early hours of the morning, seismographs along the Pacific Northwest coast began lighting up. Not one earthquake, not two, a swarm. 18 separate earthquakes, all clustered in the same location, all striking within hours of each other, all pointing to the same patch of ocean floor sitting roughly 220 miles off the coast of Washington and Oregon. The largest one hit magnitude 4.2. That is not a catastrophic number on its own, but that is not the point. The point is the pattern. The point is the location. And the point is what the instruments are telling scientists about what is happening underneath that water right now. Nobody on land felt any of these earthquakes. They were too far offshore, too deep beneath the ocean surface to rattle a single window or knock a single picture frame off a single wall. Silent, invisible, completely undetected by the millions of people living their normal lives up and down the Pacific coast. But the sensors caught every single one. The Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, the organization responsible for monitoring seismic activity across this region, issued a statement. They called this swarm unusual. They called it interesting. When scientists who spend their careers studying earthquakes use words like unusual and interesting, that is not casual conversation. That is a signal. That is the scientific equivalent of leaning forward in your chair and saying, "Pay attention to this. The swarm has been active since midnight. And here is what makes it different from ordinary background noise that this region generates all the time. It is not random. It is not scattered across a wide area. These earthquakes are tightly clustered, hitting the same zone repeatedly, building in a pattern that points directly to one explanation. Something is moving beneath the seafloor, not shifting, not settling, moving, pushing, rising. The USGS confirmed it. Magma movement beneath the ocean crust is the most likely driver of this earthquake swarm. Molten rock, heated to temperatures above 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt steel like it was plastic, is forcing its way upward through cracks in the sea floor. Every time it pushes through another fracture, another earthquake registers on the instruments. 18 times in a matter of hours, and the magnitudes have been getting bigger since midnight, not smaller. This swarm is not random geology. It is a process. It is active. It is building. But here's what nobody told you yet. The location of this swarm changes everything about what it might actually be doing. Most people have never heard of the Juan de Fuca Ridge. That is about to change. The Juan de Fuca Ridge is a massive underwater mountain range sitting on the floor of the Pacific Ocean, roughly 220 miles west of the Washington and Oregon coastline. It stretches for hundreds of miles beneath the surface, completely invisible from above, completely unknown to most of the people who live closest to it. And right now, it is the most geologically active place on the entire West Coast. Here is what the Juan de Fuca Ridge actually is, in plain terms. Deep beneath the Pacific, two massive slabs of the Earth's crust are pulling away from each other, slowly, constantly, relentlessly. As those two plates separate, they leave a gap. And nature does not leave gaps empty. Magma, molten rock from deep inside the Earth, rises up to fill that space. It hits the cold ocean water, hardens instantly, and becomes brand new ocean crust. New seafloor, built from scratch, right now. This process has been happening for millions of years, and it is happening today. Scientists call this a mid-ocean spreading center. The most famous example on the planet is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the underwater boundary that is slowly tearing the island of Iceland in two. Iceland sits directly on top of a spreading center, and the result is constant volcanic eruptions, constant earthquakes, and a landscape that looks like the surface of another planet. The Juan de Fuca Ridge is the exact same geological process, the exact same mechanics, just entirely hidden beneath 8,000 feet of Pacific Ocean water, out of sight and out of mind. This is not a subduction zone. That distinction matters more than almost anything else in this story. A subduction zone is where two plates collide and one is forced down beneath the other, grinding, locking, building up centuries of pressure that eventually releases in a catastrophic earthquake. That is the Cascadia subduction zone, sitting 220 miles to the east. That is the fault everyone fears. The Juan de Fuca Ridge is the opposite. Plates pulling apart, stress releasing gradually, magma rising freely, not collision, creation. And here is what makes that creation so significant right now. The crust being built at the Juan de Fuca Ridge today, the brand new ocean floor forming beneath this active swarm of earthquakes, will spend the next several million years slowly traveling eastward across the Pacific, until it reaches the Cascadia subduction zone and gets pulled beneath North America forever. The ridge and the fault are not separate stories. They are the beginning and the end of the same story. But here's what nobody told you yet. The magma moving beneath this ridge right now may not just be building new seafloor. Magma does not move silently. Every time molten rock forces its way through a crack in the Earth's crust, it fractures the rock around it. It shifts pressure across the surrounding seafloor. It pushes against walls of solid stone that have not moved in thousands of years and forces them to move now. And every single one of those movements registers as an earthquake. Small ones, mostly. Sometimes moderate ones. Occasionally something bigger. But always in the same recognizable pattern. A cluster of events hitting the same location repeatedly, building in a rhythm that tells scientists exactly what is happening beneath the surface without anyone ever having to see it directly. That pattern has a name: an earthquake swarm. And the swarm happening right now off the Washington coast matches the signature of magma movement almost perfectly. This is not the kind of seismic activity that comes before a massive tectonic rupture. That type of activity looks completely different. Isolated foreshocks, stress transferring across a locked fault, energy building toward a single catastrophic release. What scientists are seeing at the Juan de Fuca Ridge is the opposite. Frequent, moderate, tightly clustered earthquakes that are not building toward one giant event. They are the byproduct of a process that is already underway. The magma is already moving. The earthquakes are not the warning. They are the evidence. The USGS and the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network have both weighed in. The assessment is consistent, unusual, active, interesting, but not a hazard for people on land. The swarm's largest earthquake reached magnitude 4.2, roughly the energy of about 30 tons of dynamite detonating simultaneously beneath the ocean floor. That sounds enormous. In terms of what humans can feel on land 220 miles away, it registered as nothing. Not a tremor, not a vibration. Absolute silence at the surface, while the seafloor fractured and shifted in the dark below. But here is what the numbers are actually revealing. Since midnight, the magnitudes have not been decreasing. They have been increasing. The swarm is not winding down. It is escalating. 18 earthquakes in a matter of hours, and the pattern of that escalation, the frequency, the clustering, the gradual increase in magnitude, is consistent with one specific scenario that scientists have been watching for along this ridge for years. Not a fault rupture, not a tectonic collision, a volcanic system waking up. The magma is not just filling cracks in the seafloor. It is accumulating, pressurizing, looking for somewhere to go. But here's what nobody told you yet. There is already a volcano on this ridge that scientists have been watching around the clock, waiting for exactly this moment. There is a volcano sitting on the Juan de Fuca Ridge that scientists have been watching for years, waiting for it to erupt again. Its name is Axial Seamount, and it is the most monitored underwater volcano on the entire planet. Axial Seamount sits roughly 300 miles off the Oregon coast, fully submerged beneath nearly 1.5 miles of ocean water. It has erupted 3 times in recorded history: 1998, 2011, and 2015. Each time, the seafloor cracked open, lava poured out across an area larger than the city of Chicago, and the ocean floor literally collapsed inward by over 6 feet as the magma chamber emptied beneath it. Scientists have predicted it is due to erupt again. Some models suggest it could happen any time between now and 2025. Here is where the current swarm enters the picture. The earthquake activity lighting up instruments right now is occurring approximately 103 miles north of Axial Seamount's most active zone. Not the same location, but the same ridge, the same geological system, the same network of magma chambers and fracture zones running beneath the Pacific floor, like an underground highway of molten rock. This is not Axial Seamount erupting, but it could be the same process, playing out in a different section of the same system, building a new volcanic structure on the seafloor in a place where one did not exist before. And here is the part that makes this extraordinary. If a new underwater volcano is forming right now off the Washington coast, almost no one would know. There would be no ash cloud, no explosion, no visible lava reaching the ocean's surface. Even a ship floating directly above it would feel nothing. The eruption would happen in complete silence, in complete darkness, at the bottom of the ocean, building a mountain that no human eye will ever see. If that blew your mind, every subscriber is automatically entered in our monthly giveaway for a branded hoodie. Details in the description. But here's what nobody told you yet. This new activity sits inside the most dangerous geological neighborhood on the continent. The Juan de Fuca Ridge and the Cascadia subduction zone are not 2 separate stories. They are one story, and understanding that connection changes everything about how you see this region. Here is how it works. The Juan de Fuca Plate is born at the ridge. Magma rises, hardens, and becomes new ocean crust. That crust then spends millions of years slowly drifting eastward across the Pacific floor, roughly 220 miles, until it reaches the coast of North America. And there, at the Cascadia subduction zone, it gets forced downward beneath the continent. Consumed. Destroyed. The same plate. The same material. Created at one boundary. Annihilated at the other. The ridge is the birth. Cascadia is the death. And those 2 processes could not be more different in terms of what they mean for the people living above them. At the Juan de Fuca Ridge, plates pull apart. Stress bleeds off gradually through small and moderate earthquakes. Magma rises freely. The energy releases constantly, in manageable increments, building new crust without catastrophic consequence. At the Cascadia subduction zone, plates collide. The Juan de Fuca Plate pushes against North America, and North America pushes back. Over decades, over centuries, the two plates lock together across a fault zone stretching from Northern California all the way to southern British Columbia, a distance of nearly 700 miles. That is roughly the length of the entire state of California, and along every single mile of that locked boundary, stress is accumulating right now, silently, invisibly, building toward a release that scientists say is not a question of if, only when. The current swarm at the ridge is not a trigger for Cascadia. The mechanisms are different. The locations are separate. The risk profiles do not overlap, but they share the same plate, and that means every piece of new crust being built at the ridge today is future fuel for the subduction zone tomorrow. But here's what nobody told you yet. When Cascadia finally does release, the warning system meant to protect millions of people has a devastating limitation that most of those people have never been told about. The Cascadia subduction zone is not a future problem. It is a present one. The fault runs for nearly 700 miles, from the top of Northern California, through all of Oregon, through all of Washington, and up into southern British Columbia and Vancouver Island in Canada. It is one of the longest and most dangerous subduction zones on the entire planet. And right now, every single mile of it is locked, frozen in place. Two massive tectonic plates pressed against each other so tightly that they cannot slip, cannot release, cannot move. They are simply building pressure, the way a spring builds pressure when you compress it, except this spring has been compressing for over 300 years. The last time the Cascadia Fault fully ruptured was January 26, 1700. A magnitude 9 earthquake shook the entire Pacific Northwest with a force so violent it sent a tsunami all the way across the Pacific Ocean to Japan, where the wave was recorded in historical documents the very same night. That event was so powerful, it dropped the entire coastline of Washington and Oregon by several feet in a matter of minutes. Forests drowned, coastlines collapsed. The landscape was permanently reshaped in seconds. Scientists say it will happen again. Not might. Will. When it does, the shaking will last anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, not seconds, minutes, across a region home to millions of people. Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, Tacoma, communities that sit directly above or beside one of the most locked fault systems on Earth. And the warning? Shake alert, the earthquake. Early warning system covering the Pacific Northwest can send alerts to phones and devices the moment shaking begins. The moment, not before, after. The technology detects the earthquake as it starts and buys people perhaps 3 to 30 seconds before the strongest waves arrive. Enough time to drop to the floor, not enough time to walk out of a building. 3 seconds. That is the gap between normal life and a magnitude 9 earthquake for millions of people on the West Coast. But here's what nobody told you yet. That gap may not stay 3 seconds forever. The fact that we are talking about this swarm at all is remarkable. 20 years ago, 18 moderate earthquakes clustering on the floor of the Pacific Ocean, 220 miles offshore, would have gone almost completely unseen. The instruments were not sensitive enough. The monitoring networks were not dense enough. The data would have appeared as faint background noise on a seismograph that nobody was watching closely enough to interpret. The swarm would have happened, built, and faded, and the Earth would have kept its secrets completely. That is no longer the world we live in. The Pacific Northwest Seismic Network monitors this region around the clock with a level of precision that would have seemed impossible a generation ago. The USGS tracks every event above magnitude 1.0 across the entire offshore zone in near real time. The NOAA maintains dedicated ocean monitoring systems along the Juan de Fuca Ridge, and Axial Seamount, the most active underwater volcano on the ridge, is currently equipped with undersea cables, seafloor sensors, and live camera systems that feed continuous data to researchers on shore. Scientists are not waiting to find out what happens. They are watching it happen. That infrastructure is exactly why the current swarm was flagged immediately. It is also why the Blanco fracture zone, another fault system in this same region, was identified and assessed when its own swarm pushed above magnitude 5 earlier. Unusual, active, monitored, not ignored. The emerging frontier goes further. Researchers are now exploring whether artificial intelligence can detect micro-tremors too small for traditional instruments to classify, patterns buried inside the noise that might signal volcanic or seismic escalation minutes or even hours earlier than current systems allow. Satellite GPS technology can now measure ground and seafloor movement to within the width of a single human hair. A hair. Applied to fault monitoring, that precision could one day detect a locked plate beginning to shift before the shaking starts. The technology is not there yet, but it is closer than it has ever been. And meanwhile, the swarm off the Washington coast is still active, still building, still being watched. But here's what nobody told you yet. What happens next may rewrite what scientists thought they knew about this entire region. Right now, at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, the seafloor off the Washington coast is splitting apart. Not metaphorically, not gradually in a way that will take millions of years to matter. Right now, in real time, magma is pushing through cracks in the ocean floor, fracturing rock, building pressure, and potentially constructing something brand new in the cold darkness 8,000 feet beneath the surface. A volcanic structure that did not exist before, built in silence, built invisibly, built in one of the most geologically consequential stretches of ocean on the entire planet. This is what the Earth does. It has always done this. Long before humans were here to measure it, the Juan de Fuca Ridge was splitting open and closing and splitting open again, creating the very crust that eventually became the ground the Pacific Northwest is built on today. The seafloor beneath the Washington coast is not ancient and unchanging. It is alive, it is moving, and every so often, it reminds us of that fact in ways we cannot ignore. The swarm may fade in the coming days. The magma may retreat back into the mantle without ever breaching the seafloor. The instruments will keep watching either way. But the larger story does not fade with it. The Cascadia subduction zone remains locked. The pressure keeps building. The Pacific Northwest remains one of the most seismically vulnerable regions in the entire Western Hemisphere, and most of the people who live there are not ready for what is coming. Preparation is not panic. It is the only rational response to living above a fault that scientists say will absolutely rupture. If this story reminded you that the ground beneath your feet is never as stable as it feels, grab your free disaster preparedness toolkit. The link is in the description. The swarm off the Washington coast may quiet down tomorrow, or it may get bigger, or something else entirely may be building beneath that water right now that no one has fully mapped yet. The ocean floor is not stable. It never was, and it is not done.